Namaste, Tiwari. Good morning to you.
Good morning to everyone.
Thank you from everyone. Tiwari, do I have your permission to start from a little bit of a briefing from the last conversation, and then we...
Please, please.
And then we'll move on to the questions and answers.
Yeah. Go
ahead. You can hear me loud and... Sure. You can hear me loud and clear. Brilliant.
Very good.
So Tiwari, in the last conversation, you mentioned that the value of carbon dioxide is more in pranayama. Breath retention has a calming effect on the mind and a balancing effect on the brain. The slow stretch of the inhale not only allows optimum absorption of oxygen, but also brings the practice of retention in process, where collection of CO2 begins. Exhale is double of the inhale in pranayama, which highlights that the output of CO2 is more. Carbon dioxide is more. In pranayama techniques, retention or kumbhak, the in between inhale and exhale, is grown slowly. You mentioned that pranayama pulse taken by the teacher detects the psychology, the pranayamic pulse detects the psychology of a practitioner, while the Ayurvedic pulse tells us of the biology. Yogic practices, especially pranayama, have the ability to transform the weakness in the pulse, that not only, yoga practices have the ability to transform the weaknesses in the pulse that not only strengthen the biology, but also the psychology of the practitioner. Tiwari, I'm going to use a quote that you often give us, and I'm adding this on to what you had said in the last conversation. So you always say, satisfy your needs, not your greed. Yeah. And you mentioned, you touched upon that in the last session in a different way. So what I've written here is yoga asana, satisfy your needs, not your greed, is a natural effect of a productive yoga practice. If the change has not come about naturally, there's no difference in a practitioner and a non-practitioner. Your asana is not acrobatics, and therefore steady, stable asana that bring natural harmony and balance in the body are practiced. Yoga asana further should also not leave a practitioner agitated or fatigued. Pranayama requires a practice of yoga postures that perfects our seated meditative posture. There can be variations in our seat for comfort, but a natural alignment of the spine is important. And we do pranayama sitting upright. In pranayama from ancient times, the physiology of the nostrils helped develop the specific techniques. The rhythms of the moon channel represented by the left nostril and the sun channel represented by the right nostril are important components of the techniques. The connection of the mind and heart to the breath is an important one to note. Heart rate and pulse almost immediately can change, but the breath can manage that too. Pranayama is to be done for short periods of time that impact our day ahead, health and personality over time. It needs to be done on an empty stomach, alone, without talking. So those are the little tips that you gave us to prevent any malpractice. Your last message was continue to develop the message of yoga with the support of science, but please do not dilute the message. Comments, corrections, please.
I think what you said is true, which I said. And I can repeat one thing only. My teacher, last, when he was breathing last, he caught my hand and said, Tiwari, I have brought up this institution out of nothing. And if it goes to nothing, I do not mind, but yoga should not be diluted. And that Kaivalyadham cares the utmost. We can improve if scientifically it is proved otherwise. We don't hesitate to improve, but we will never dilute which is the truth and which is found as a truth. So you can start with the question now. I will try my best to answer it. And if I can't, I will say, I do not know.
Okay, Tiwari. I will start with the first question. You mentioned that the output of carbon dioxide is more in pranayama, which is why the exhale becomes double. If a student is trying to retain breath after inhale in kumbhak to a point where exhale cannot be double, what should be their protocol?
In the beginning, we want him to learn to hold the breath. So, what we do is, instead of directly holding the breath, it is safer to prolong the time of exhalation. If, suppose, one is inhaling in 4 seconds and the practitioner is asked to exhale in the 8th second, that means 4 seconds are added to his time of exhalation. And that is how we start with a precaution, holding the breath in process. Exhalation does not stop. but the time is delayed. It is 4 seconds extra the breath is held during exhalation, so that there is no harm, not hurt, because the breathing is so important, it can disturb any part of your body very easily because of when we are doing, we do not know how much is to be exhaled. Therefore, they have said it should be double, so that you will be training yourself to hold the breath steadily. When you inhale and after inhale, there is a locks applied and breath is held. Then there will be no harm. Otherwise, they have said, ayuktabhyas yogena sarvaroga samudbhavaha. If you do improperly the breathing pranayam, then maybe some disorder may develop. And they have said, what are those disorders? Hiccups, swasascha, kashascha, disturbance in the breathing, coughing, shirah karanakshi vedana. You may develop a headache, earache, some pressure on the optic nerve can disturb the eyesight. Bhavanti vividha roga pavanasya prakopataha. You are dealing, as you are dealing with the pranic energy in your body, any mistake in practicing pranayam, diluting the technique, may result in certain disorders. Therefore, it has been prescribed pranayam always should be begin with the exhalation time of double. Maybe sometime it is not possible. Then reduce the time of the inhalation. You will be able to adjust the exhalation. So this is what I can say.
So Tiwari, for people who are brand new, so, and if they're not able to stretch the exhale to double, we ask them to reduce, the time of the inhale to then help them extend the exhale, right?
Of course.
And Tiwari, you spoke. Sorry, please.
Yes.
So Tiwari, you also spoke about holding the breath in with bandhas. So at the moment, we're not touching on the bandhas, especially for the newcomers, because we do know that if you kind of go into bandhas prematurely, without understanding how to regulate your breath with the ratios that you're giving, it becomes more destructive than constructive, right?
Yeah.
So for a raw beginner, we don't talk about bandhas per se. We add them on later. We start with 1 to 2 ratio, which is 1 of inhale to double of exhale. So for instance, if they are only able to take in 4 counts of inhale, then they must double to 8 counts of exhale. And then start with that kind of a practice. And then we take them into bandha practice and we develop that a little bit later, right?
Later on.
Yes, and it's actually, would you agree that it's also very important that you exhale completely?
Exhale?
Completely. So in the sense that when we are doubling the exhale, there's obviously, there's more carbon dioxide in your system, but you're making sure that all of it is clear. So it's not like we hold the carbon dioxide in. When we've used it for the techniques, we empty it all the way out.
First, beginning is only exhaling double. That means you are exhaling during the breathing itself. Means you are holding the breath, slowing the breath in process, and that will be harmless. But suddenly, if I teach you the holding the breath, then bandhas become necessary, and that may be harmful. So first it is 1:2 ratio inhalation and exhalation. Then it becomes 1:1:2. Then 1:2:2. 1:3:2. 1:4:2. That is the full stop. But it takes nearly 1.5 years to reach 1:4:2.
And you must not force that 1:4:2.
No.
You should work with it naturally as it goes
Only
up.
that is the limit. According to yogic physiology.
Tiwari, what is the importance of retention after exhale?
See, in position, in 4 positions, the pranayam can be practiced. Patanjali has described 4 categories of pranayama. First, inhale and hold the breath. Second is exhale and hold the breath outside. Third, he says, can be done with gap while inhaling and gap while exhaling. But later on, after studying the effect of pranayama, because Patanjali's pranayama are mainly for spiritual purposes, to give you an inner awareness. But during the time of Gorakhnath and Matsyendranath, Hatha Yoga developed into the 8 categories, because the question of health also came to be concerned. So then the pranayam developed into 8 categories, which were responsible for your general health and also spiritual growth.
So Tiwari, then what would be the role of, is there a specific role of the retention or the pause after the exhale?
No, Betsy, this can be self-experimented. You are open the eyes, inhale, your thinking will not stop. But when you inhale and hold the breath, it slows down. But if you exhale and hold the breath, you are maximum concentrated. But when the CO2 level goes beyond the limit, you become disturbed. So they have said that comfortably, as long as you can hold the breath out, and that will give you much more peaceful effect on brain function. It will help you to enter into the meditation in shorter time.
That was brilliant, Tiwari. That answered that particular question, and also gave me at least a good sense of you're touching on things, but you're touching on these practices, and that touch itself develops a certain, so you spoke about concentration, and then touching upon at the end of the exhale where there's no breath, touching upon the retention then is improving your concentration, which, like we had already identified, that what we do in pranayama is for short periods, but then it leaves a residue behind that goes with us through the day and then trains us in our personalities over life.
Yeah. Transform the personality.
Right.
Change is a temporary phenomena, but he transforms you. You realize something. I can tell you one instance in France. There was a lady, I don't mention the name, she was non-vegetarian. Believe it, and she had developed the asthma. She was learning pranayama, whatever was necessary, it was taught, but naturally she said, I have no desire now to eat the meat. Though I never said that leave the meat, but it came from his within that no, I don't want, I feel more comfortable when I change to the vegetarian diet. Now see, I never said, I never impressed on that point, but this came, and she was cured of asthma permanently.
Vaiji, I'm going to give you my example, for instance. I remember I was a pure vegetarian through my pregnancy with Razin. So it was something that I wanted to try out. And then I went into eating meat, a lot of meat, because I realized that somewhere I was deficient. So I thought maybe going to the other, realm would be important. Science, some scientific thought agreed with that. Some science agrees with being pure vegetarian. But in both those instances, I remember that there was a bit of forced discipline. I'm not even checking in with myself to see what is required for me naturally. And I remember having a conversation with you about eating meat or not eating meat. And you at that time gave me this, a general sense. You said maybe, twice a week you have meat. You didn't tell me, to go off completely. You mentioned that do it twice a week. And I think it was the attitude that was changing as I was practicing, which meant that I going to it need-based as per my my cycle, in the sense that as a woman as well, I realized that, and I don't go by, and I'm not going to give numbers per se as to how many times I eat meat or how many times I don't, because the ego gets involved a little bit. And I'd rather just stay true to the information that naturally came through the awareness that continues to cultivate itself through practices. So just reinforcing the same thing, that it was not very productive for me when I was completely vegetarian, from deep understanding. There was no deep understanding then. There was deep understanding when I turned mostly vegetarian naturally, because it was coming naturally from within.
It happens.
I'm a witness to that. So Tiwari, I'll move on to the next question. What is the importance of Jalandhara Bandha?
Jalandhara Bandha.
Ji.
See, in yogic physiology, there are 10 types of the vayu, the air which we inhale. It has different work assigned to body function. But prana, which you inhale from nose, apana is a prana. Prana means the vayu which is having more oxygen. Apan has no oxygen. It is CO2 plus other gases. So what they say is apanam murdham uthapya. In pranayamic practices, that is why the mool bandha is practiced, because the apana should not go out. Apan murdham uthapya. Urdhva means upward. Bring apana upward. Pranam kanthadadhunayet, and bring the prana from below the throat, means in the lungs. Yogi jara vimuktasya shodashabdavayo bhavet. The yogi becomes younger and younger because they want apana to be merged with the prana. And it has a wonderful effect of awakening the Kundalini. That is why they have said Moolbandha should be practiced so that apana is brought up, and Jalandhar Bandha should be practiced so that prana goes down and they meet at one point the impulses. Remember, they are not talking of physical form of gases. They are talking of very, very the subtlest part of the effect. And when the two currents meet, the Kundalini gets awakened. That is why the Jalandhar Bandha is important, to bring the pressure of the pranavayu downward. Am I clear?
Brilliant.
Okay.
Very clear, because Tiwari, as always, you have answered the next 3 questions. All right. So you are clear, and I think when we go a little bit forward, there will hopefully be even more clarity. So Tiwari,
yes.
So you, in number 4, I had actually wanted to ask you about Apana Vayu and Prana Vayu. So here's my understanding of it. I've let go of the other Vayus. I'm just speaking specifically about Apana and Prana Vayu, just when you touched upon it. So Apana Vayu translates as the air that moves away, and its flow is downwards and out. So it's expressed as an exhale that empties downwards towards the pelvic floor. Prana Vayu translates as forward moving air, and its flow is inwards and upwards towards the heart and upwards towards the crown, and its seat is in the region of the heart. In pranayama, we not only connect with the subtle energy of both, but also bring them to balance with specific kriyas and pranayama. Can you please elaborate or make corrections to my understanding? So that was you went even further. So, right, is there any, is this in alignment with what you've mentioned earlier?
Yeah. See, it helps, that mixture helps to create a pressure on the Kundalini nerve, which is otherwise, though live, but inactive. So, as soon as this touches the hood of the Kundalini, which is supposed to be like in serpent power, it raises its hood and gets awakened. Then our spiritual journey starts. Then we start seeing things as they are, not that as they appear. whole thing goes under revolution. That is why they have said yogi becomes more and more with understanding of the reality. So that is why the Mool Bandha is to be adopted, Jalandhar Bandha to be adopted, and Udyan Bandha to be practiced in the last when you are about to leave the start exhalation.
And like you mentioned, since we're working with the seat of Pranavayu and the seat of Apanavayu in those particular regions, they are helping us get to that place where it will activate eventually our Kundalini. So, Tiwari, I was going to ask you, what is Kundalini awakening and why is it important for a student of Pranayama?
What?
So you touched upon it. What is Kundalini awakening? You touched upon it already. Okay. You answered my question. But would you like to elaborate on it specifically?
See, look here, the same thing has, India has 6 systems of philosophy. And every system has its terminology. The Patanjali will call this dharana. The Hatha Yoga will call it a awakening of Kundalini. So different. In Bhakti Yoga they will say something, in Tantra Yoga they will say something, but the thing is the same. It is a process of awakening of Kundalini. Because Kundalini touches that lore of physiology which keeps the minds become very, very concentrated, calm. Otherwise, it is said, mind does not allow you to be steady. Always keeps you changing. Therefore, that cycle to be stopped and a steadiness in thinking to be brought, Kundalini's awakening is wonderful practice.
So, Tiwari, so Kundalini, as we know, is this dormant energy that sits at the base of our spine, physiologically speaking, and is awakened through our practices. In the event that students who have practiced over time are not able to awaken the Kundalini, are they still benefiting from the practices?
Of course, because the journey has started. There are certain mudras, bandhas, they help to awaken the Kundalini. It becomes active.
So Tiwari, we'll leave it at that, because if we start to go into the details of Kundalini awakening and the Granthis, and it'll take us into a longer discussion. I would like to ask you the last question I have here. We're taught that meditation, we as pranayama students are taught that meditation is a natural, spontaneous side effect of a well-balanced pranayama practice.
Very
you don't force yourself to sit quietly, but become quiet within yourself.
It is byproduct.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
See, the thing is, we should understand very, very clearly. Though it is called Ashtanga Yoga, but in Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali has divided into 2 parts. One is called Bahiranga Yoga, external yoga. Now, external yoga are those practices which you practice, which you do. And Antaranga Yoga is the result of the Bahiranga practice. You cannot go into meditation. It is the result of your practices. Slowly start concentrating, then you go completely inside. But that happens because of your practices. You cannot go into samadhi by yourself. But automatically it develops in you and your personality is transformed. So this is to be remembered. Many people say, oh, I'm going to practice meditation. No, you cannot practice meditation. You can practice meditation techniques which will take you to meditation. Antarang yoga cannot be practiced by will. It happens automatically. But it
And
needs meditational techniques.
Tiwari, in my own practice, for me, the bridge becomes pranayama. The bridge
100%.
of coming into that state becomes pranayama, and then
I agree with you.
Tiwari, in terms of, I also feel that there is some connection of going into that state of meditation with non-attachment. Isn't there a natural state of non-attachment as a result of, and that's the joy of meditation youth.
Right, you're right.
Tiwari, we are at the end of our session, and I want to, close it with one of your quotes, and I've been reminded that I have to make an announcement. I'm very happy to make that announcement, but the quote goes like this: only practice will bring success. You've said that to us. Practice and practice, all is coming, and only practice will bring success.
Practice makes you perfect.
All right, I'll add that on, to your quotes that I have memorized. So Tiwari, knowing that only practice will take us onto this productive journey of pranayama, I'm very happy to announce that we are you, and I will be just helping you facilitate a course of 5 sessions coming up in July. 3rd of July is our first session, and it'll be a weekly class that we have. You will be teaching us. I will just try to be your eyes and ears, hopefully helping you.
I will be so happy.
So for all the students who are wanting to learn and who are already learning, I would like to encourage them to sign on. It's an online, they're going to be online sessions once a week on a Saturday afternoon for Kebalia Dham and for in India and Singapore as well. It's going to be afternoon time, and it's going to be actually available for those in Europe as well, because it'll be morning time for them. So all your students from Europe will not have any complaints about not being able to see you live.
That is your field.
I'm supported by the Kebalia Dham support team. I couldn't have done it without them.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Tiwari. I would like to thank you again. There are more questions to come in the future.
I must thank you all, even the viewers also. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, and thank you from all of us, Tiwari. See you soon in practice.
So